Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Big Jiu-Jitsu Show, member of the Pod Bros Podcast Network. Don't forget to go to podbros.com and find yourself another podcast that you want to listen to. And don't forget to check out our sponsors, Trap and Roll Soap Company, Tape Armor, and Rolls Gear, and find all of our old episodes at bjjshow.com. I'm Rob, and we're doing another archived episode. So I had an interview a while back with Tiffany Bayliss, and we talked a bit about females training, women training in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, kind of some of the I guess challenges that come with it, especially in, fairly male-dominated sport, not necessarily just being excluded, but sometimes some people aren't quite as accepting. So I really do hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and don't forget to like and favorite us on iTunes, YouTube, all that good stuff, and leave us a rating and a review on iTunes, and I'll catch you guys after the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Big Jiu-Jitsu Show. I'm Rob, the Lord Humongous, and today I'm interviewing Tiffany Bayliss. She's a purple belt out of Toronto. Her academy is Open Mat Mixed Martial Arts. So thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you.
Awesome. So, Tiffany, how did you get started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
So I had done martial arts for a long time. I started karate when I was probably 9. I think it was like, the heyday of karate's popularity with small children. And I did that for ages, just all the way until university. And then when I was in university, my karate instructor, who was a black belt in karate, also happened to have a blue belt in jiu-jitsu. And he would show us some jiu-jitsu moves on the weekend during class, and I thought it was way cooler than anything that we did in karate. And so when I eventually got back to Toronto, I decided to Google jiu-jitsu gyms in Toronto. I think I'd watched the movie Red Belt by David Mamet the night before.
I've seen that too. Yeah, it's pretty interesting movie.
Yeah, and it's got a lot of stuff in there that isn't necessarily about the jiu-jitsu. It's more about morality and whatnot. But I think that movie had kind of spurred me to get back into martial arts a little bit, or reminded me how cool it was. And so I just Googled Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Toronto or something like that. And I tried out a few clubs, and then I ended up meeting, at one of the classes I tried out, I ended up meeting my professor, Elliot Baev, who wasn't a professor yet. He was actually a purple belt at the time, but he was running classes for women. And I wasn't so concerned about it being only women in the class, but the fact that it was really close to where I lived at the time was kind of the big draw for me. And so I ended up taking classes from him and never stopped.
And so here you are, purple belt?
Until now, yes.
Very cool.
And he's a black belt by now.
Oh, good. Very good. So, I don't know how old you are. I'm 31, so I remember growing up, and it was you either did karate or taekwondo, or people made fun of you. If you did, well, I think you got made fun of at the time for it anyways, but those were the popular ones. So I think, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu did come along, I think kind of just drowned out the other martial arts at the time. Something I wanted to bring up with you, and it was something you posted up on Reddit. Reddit seems to be pretty much like you and then Chris, been pretty much the last two guests I've had over Skype that I found to be interesting. I wanted to hear more about, you and him based on the interactions I've seen on Reddit. But it was based on the Metamoris. Was it you called for you explained why you weren't watching Metamoris anymore? Do you remember that post?
Right. Yes.
Yeah, yes.
I think that was my first actual post on RBJJ, as I recall. But yeah, it was well received by some people, and then some people were very hostile to it. But it was basically just in response to that whole thing of Hallett Gracie saying that, women's matches don't draw in the money and they're not exciting. And, maybe if the girls are cute, then I will be persuaded to watch a women's match. But otherwise, and I don't know, it wasn't like, it wasn't anything actually that I hadn't heard before. But for some reason, just at that moment, it was kind of the last straw. I was just so sick of hearing that, my jujitsu is not as good as a male purple belt's jujitsu. I've had like so many people just kind of insinuate that to me or straight up say it to my face. And I actually don't get it. They're like, to me, technique is technique. And anybody who's trying to come up with other reasons why they won or lost to somebody, whether it was because of strength or gender or I was tired or whatever, is, I don't know, just not really channeling the spirit of jiu-jitsu the way that I see it, I guess.
Well, I think that I'm not saying like there was a lot. What year did you start doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
It was 2009.
Okay, yeah. So like Ultimate Fighter had started really gaining steam, and I remember going to a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournament, and it was almost like a tap out convention. And I'm like, dude, you guys need to chill out. But so like I read through the post, and reading what you said people had said to you, like, pretty much upset me just based upon what we preach in the sport versus what you said people were saying. And like the whole, was it one, like you said, the one guy said, oh yeah, you're pretty solid. If I could compare you as a purple belt, you'd be like a really solid male blue belt. Like that's really bullshit. Really bullshit thing to say. Yeah. And what were they? Were they a blue belt?
He was a blue belt. Yeah, and I was kicking his butt as well.
The freaking know-it-all rank, right?
Yeah.
I spent 2 years here, so I know pretty much everything about jiu-jitsu. And, for an art that where we celebrate individuality and, it's not, you don't need to worry about everybody else. There does seem to be a lot of other people just, like, talking shit. Doesn't even matter about, like... Yes, the whole male-female dynamic does cause a big issue as far as some people's hurt feelings over getting beaten up by a girl, whatever. Because one of the first people to, like, beat me bad in jiu-jitsu was a woman. And I think that kind of, to me, showed, like, hey, this is jiu-jitsu. Anybody can beat anybody. But I think some people still can't get over the fact that just because it's a woman doesn't mean that it's automatically, like, an easier match or she's not going to be as good because people favor her and gave her a belt or whatnot. But
yeah, I mean, I've heard so much shit. Like, I just got into a discussion about whether there should be, women should be allowed to compete in divisions against men. And somebody on the thread just literally said, like, oh, we should do that because that will give men a break in between their other matches against men. Like, yeah, I don't know. People just say they don't realize, I guess, that women are reading this, or maybe they just don't care. I don't know.
Well, it seems to be kind of like with martial arts in general, as well as especially Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, some Muay Thai. Actually, Muay Thai not so much, but it seems to be kind of the boys' club at times. And I mean, thankfully, I haven't run into it. Like, unfortunately, you've had to run into it as much as you have, but, like, maybe just based on the school I was at, that the professor didn't put up with it. But, I mean, yeah, there is some still, like, oh, it's a girl, easy time to roll with. But, my last gym, we had Gudrun, who I'm going to give her another shout-out again. She's not somebody you can sandbag on. Like, oh, that's great, here's another easy match. Like, she's a purple belt, and if you don't mind your P's and Q's, she will beat the shit out of you. So I think... Do you think maybe it's also the fact that some of these people haven't been in jiu-jitsu as long? that they haven't seen more of, like, the complete picture, I guess.
I do think that's a factor, for sure, and especially if they themselves haven't felt the power of technique and they're just kind of muscling it through all of their own roles, then they might think, or they might not just have the experience to know that there's something beyond that. But I have also heard a lot of crap from people who are very experienced, purple belts, brown belts, and it's I think it's sometimes that people have gone up through the ranks in an environment where there just aren't a lot of women, or a lot of advanced women, or a lot of women who are, can give them a hard time. And so because that hasn't been their experience, it's the classic thing. I haven't experienced it, therefore it doesn't exist. And so I think that may be part of it, because, there's just so few of us out there. And I'm actually really lucky because my gym is one of the, I don't know, it has, I guess, quite a few women in the gym. I am currently the most advanced woman at the gym that I train at, but, we have a lot of girls who are really, really tough. And so I don't think that kind of attitude would be as prominent in my gym. I have encountered the occasional comment, but most of it is from people who train elsewhere. Because everybody at my gym knows that I will try to mess them up. Although it does add another dimension to my rolling as well. It can be a very emotional experience, because I feel like, well, if I don't beat somebody who I feel like I'm supposed to beat, then they're going to be making assumptions. They're going to think that it's because I'm a woman, and it really gets in my head sometimes.
Well, there's still a ways for, society to go. Like, I'm all about the equal playing field. I know there's been a lot of talk of either, like, I think you and I had a small conversation on the board, like the whole social justice warrior thing, and like, like, I don't know if it really pertains to being a social justice warrior to want equality, or just not being a shitty human being is why you want to have equality, and that people can do whatever the fuck they want as far as being good at jiu-jitsu or not being good at jiu-jitsu, or, whatever they want to do in their life. Like, I don't know how, like, I fall in that category, or is it just...
Well, maybe I'm, like, there's a couple of terms that get used on the internet and very much on Reddit and Facebook that I don't like, specifically because they're used to just shut down arguments rather than engaging with them rationally. So one is social justice warrior. It's like, instead of engaging with the content of what you're saying and really considering it on its own merits, I'm going to label you as a person who has certain motivations that I'm just going to ascribe to you based on nothing. And then that way I can dismiss whatever argument you're making without even, reading it. And the other one is white knight. And it's exactly the same thing. I have decided, based on nothing, that you're only commenting, you're only agreeing with a woman because you want to have sex with her, you want to get into her pants, and therefore I dismiss whatever argument, insert argument here, doesn't matter. And so when people use those terms, I get a little frustrated, because I wish that we could all kind of assume that even if we disagree, we have pure motivations, and that we could, discuss things in a rational manner.
No, you're right there. I think the internet makes it so much easier to blindly throw out accusations like that, instead of just like, all right, so I'll give you an example from my side of the fence. So we just had 2 women graduate Ranger School in the Army, right?
Right.
And, sorry, my wife's...
Oh, I'm sorry.
She's getting changed.
Was that on video?
Yes, you're on video.
Edit that out.
No, well, I'm not going to put the video up. All right, let me back that up so I can start over again. the problems of living in a hotel room. So we just had 2 women graduate Ranger School, and a lot of people have said that it's either because they lowered the standards or they got special treatment, or, so people who either, wanted them to graduate were labeled social justice warriors, and the guys who are defending the women are, like the white knights or whatever. But it doesn't it doesn't mention the fact that, there were 16 or 18 that started, only 2 graduated, but there was also 300 other men who didn't make it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So they want to kind of brush aside the fact that, it's a tough school. I haven't gone personally, but, these 2 women were able to accomplish something that, the men weren't able to do, and it seems to be a lot of anger and upset feelings over that, but it's easier to call that out on the internet and just make wild accusations than actually, like you said, have an open conversation about, what the stance really is about.
Mm-hmm. And about why people feel uncomfortable with the idea that a woman could meet the standard that men are being held to, or in the case of jiu-jitsu, that a woman could actually, beat a man in something resembling physical combat. I hesitate to call sport jiu-jitsu combat, but
it's tiring, and it's rough. So
yeah,
I mean, I wouldn't discount it at all.
No, I mean, I guess it's sport combat. But I think that situation has a lot of parallels in jiu-jitsu too. I was actually just having a conversation with a tournament promoter, and he was saying, I want to give you guys the prizes and the opportunities, and women aren't signing up for my tournament. And I turned around and said, well, look, my gym has like a couple hundred men who train jiu-jitsu, and, maybe 5 women who, compete and everything. And so that means that if 3 of the women show up to your tournament, that's not very many women, but it's 60% of the women who train at my gym. Are 60% of the men who train at my gym expected to show up to your tournament as well? Which would be 180 people if there are 200 men, 120 people if there are 200 men. That's a lot of people from one gym, right? So
yeah.
It's, I am only one woman. I can only sign up for a tournament once. I'm doing my best. I feel like I have to sign up for every single tournament, no matter what, if I'm available, just to kind of, prove that women are trying to put ourselves out there. But I can't make it so that there are more of us magically. But I don't think that those of us who are there should be punished because of that.
No, and like you said, that's 60%. Like, no gym, unless it's like one of these big competition gyms like Lloyd Irvin or, Atos, or even then, I don't think 60% of their people show up. And that was something that just happened with like the Road to Metamoris Challenger, or whatever it is, North American Challenger. Like, a lot of the divisions got combined because there weren't enough women at all to show up. But that's a whole nother mess that they keep seeming to dig themselves into.
Yeah. I mean, that's a funny, situation, because if they're combined divisions, then women don't want to sign up because they don't want to fight, a giant brown belt when they're a small blue belt and stuff like that. I've competed probably in more mixed divisions than my actual division, because in Ontario, lightweight purple belts are thin on the ground. So I've competed against brown belts as a blue belt, purple belts as a blue belt. Now that I'm a purple belt, I've competed against brown belts and blue belts, against lots of women who are bigger than me. I had a match against a black belt in the last Ontario Open. We've actually faced each other a lot of times. Even though she's in the heavyweight division, I'm in the lightweight, we've probably had a good 5 or 6 matches against each other over the years. Dang. And she got her black belt recently. So it's kind of it's funny, the women's jiu-jitsu in Ontario, it's a very small community, and we're all, those of us who compete, we're facing each other all the time. And we're always trying to encourage each other to go out to the tournaments and stuff. but life happens, people get injured or have life obligations. And for us, that's like, it's because it's so high stakes, right? If we don't show up to the tournament, it's like maybe no women are going to be at the tournament if I don't go, right?
Yeah,
Whereas
exactly.
if a guy doesn't show up because, I feel like going to a barbecue instead this weekend, no big deal. There's no, he's not damaging the cause of men in jiu-jitsu, right?
Yeah, I know, because you got this whole, like, oh, so you'd be like, oh, well, none of the women showed up. Oh, well, like, but I don't know. There needs to be more. That's just my opinion, because based on personal experience, based on some bad things I've seen in life, like, I think more women doing jiu-jitsu and choking people out from guard is a great thing, or breaking arms, or whatever, or just doing it in general. And I think equal I can't even talk, god dang. Equal treatment is what you need. I think especially with the IBJJF finally, like, fine, we'll pay both people the same. That's what needed to happen from the beginning. But that also seemed to be, there's been a lot of, like, no girls allowed type stuff in a lot of the traditional Brazilian organizations, though, for jiu-jitsu, it seems.
Yeah, for sure. There does seem to be a certain amount of crossover between this sort of very traditional Brazilian family values and the American sort of family values contingent, where um, I've yeah, I've even had people express to me like, a woman shouldn't be fighting, period. That's not a thing for women. What if the woman gets injured because she's so delicate? Or like, why would men want to be in that awkward situation where they're married but they're touching another woman because they feel like a man touching a woman is this inherently sexual thing? There's all these kind of very antiquated assumptions that, when you're walking around and interacting with people on a normal basis, you don't notice, but as soon as you get into this highly charged situation, that all seems to come out.
I think a lot of it as well stems from, because I've heard a lot of stuff like that, and it seems to be coming from the people who've never done jiu-jitsu as well. Because it also seems to be like, well, why would you want to roll on the ground with another dude and get all sweaty? I'm like, well, that's kind of the furthest thing from my mind when some dude's trying to choke me unconscious.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
It's not like, oh, this is a great opportunity for me to get my hands on somebody. I mean, honestly, there probably is some weirdo out there who is like that. I'm pretty sure he's
I don't want to roll with you if that's what you're thinking, Like, if somebody is thinking that jiu-jitsu is sexual, like, I don't know, that's not the kind of person who is taking it as an opportunity to grope me. And I've heard jokes about that too, and it's really like, I'd love to roll with that Hillary Williams or whatever. Hillary Williams would kill you. You're dead. Yeah, I don't know, it's just really, really jarring sometimes to kind of encounter this very, I don't know, this view of women that seems kind of Neanderthal, I guess.
But do you think it's getting better?
I don't know. It's funny because, like, as I've gotten better at jiu-jitsu and more experienced and competed more, I'm also more involved in the jiu-jitsu community. I know more people. I'm connected with more people through Facebook. I get involved in more discussions. So it's almost like it's intensified my awareness of these issues. When I was a white belt, I was all, like, oblivious and happy, and, like, everybody at my gym accepted me, and I wasn't a threat to anyone, obviously, being a white belt, and so it was just like, I love jiu-jitsu, it's amazing and life-changing. And then, now I'm a little more cynical about some of the elements of the scene. But that said, from an objective perspective, it's really cool to see sort of the material progress that has been made. For example, the first time I watched the Worlds, the women's brown and black belt divisions were combined. And now the black belts have their own division. They have enough women who are black belts going to Worlds that it was ridiculous to combine them anymore. And that's really cool. And yeah, the whole, like, women getting equal prize money thing, which is still obviously a contentious issue in a lot of arenas. But I actually just ordered a T-shirt designed by Dominika Obelenite. I hope I'm saying her name right. But she's the women's black belt super heavyweight and absolute champion this year. She's incredible. You should watch some of her matches if you haven't already. But she's very, very involved in this equal pay for BJJ cause, and she designed a T-shirt. It's got 2 black belts on it. One has the woman symbol and one has the man symbol. It's got equal pay for BJJ on the back.
Cool.
So I'm excited to get that and wear it around town. And I think,
represent. Nice.
And I think that, I also tend to focus on the negative too much sometimes because, it can really wear on you just to constantly hear, like, oh, you're being held to a lower standard, women aren't as good, blah, 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 sexualizing comments, et cetera, et cetera. But there are so many people who are on the side of equality and who, so many men who I know personally who are incredible advocates for equal treatment and equal recognition of women in BJJ. So, that's probably something I should remind myself to focus on more.
Yeah, always look at the good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least, unfortunately there's bad stuff, but try to look on the good stuff. Well, Tiffany, actually this interview went longer than I thought it would, so we're going to have to, unfortunately, call it. But do you have any sponsors, anybody you'd like to give a shout out to?
Well, I guess I don't know if, Open Mat Mixed Martial Arts, my gym, they're really, really cool people. And I kind of got sponsored as a one-time deal by BC Kimonos at my super fight that I had in Mississauga a couple months ago, and they sent me a gi for free that was really, really nice.
Oh, wow.
I was really impressed. So, BC Kimonos, good stuff. And also, my boyfriend runs an e-store for grappling apparel for it. He ships to all of Canada, and it's called Grapple Gear. And he, possibly because he's dating me and I'm like a feminist harpy, but he has tons of women's gear on it. So if there are any women listening and you want, a really nice women's cut gi, they come in both pink and not pink. So check that out.
Outstanding. That's pretty damn cool.
Yeah.
please tell me he at least hooks you up with a deal, because if I did that, my wife would kill me if I'd never gave her a deal on stuff.
Yeah, no, I've gotten a few free samples and stuff out of it. Stuff that he got for himself and then didn't fit him, which happened to fit me. So that's pretty cool. And I actually have too much jiu-jitsu gear right now.
There's no such thing. I'm sorry.
So I'm kind of like, I could probably get more stuff if I wanted, but I'm trying to resist.
That's a different problem altogether. Well, Tiffany, once again, thank you for coming on the show and talking with me about, just everything.
Thanks so much for having me.
Anytime. And I will talk to you later, and have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.